And I'm certainly not an expert to the same extent that people who work for decades at ATF as firearms experts who examine the mechanics, velocity speeds.
Okay, I'll take that as I'm not an expert at some level.
How many guns has the ATF lost?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
CBS News was first to report today that federal agents have launched a multi-state search for firearms stolen from an ATF facility in West Virginia. The weapons were supposed to be destroyed.
Is it a difficult question to understand?
Investigators tell CBS News they fear thousands of guns and gun parts were stolen from this ATF facility in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Well, I don't know if you're referring to any particular incident or time.
How many
period.
instances should we be looking at where you've lost guns?
Storm that erupted today over an undercover government operation gone very wrong. It is called Fast and Furious.
So if what you're referring to is what happened at the National Destruction Ranch, no guns were lost. They were stolen by an individual who's now in prison.
The case began when police searched Christopher Lee Yates's car and found a pistol. They ran a check and quickly determined the gun had been stolen from this ATF facility.
Right.
Who was not an ATF employee.
But there were recommendations made on what you should do so that you don't become the victim of the theft, and the Inspector General saying you're not following them. I'm quoting directly from the Inspector General's report. Thousands of firearms parts, and ammunition had been stolen from the ATF.
According to court papers, Yates unlawfully stole firearm parts and sold firearm slides, which are used to make guns.
So you gave testimony that the brave ATF agents are the ones showing up at 2 a.m. after a burglary. But it seems as though in this case, you were the one burglarized. Why have you not followed the recommendations of the Office of Inspector General so that you aren't the mark?
Again, I want to say that it is brave women men and women of ATF who do this.
FBI, open up!
Yes, that's not
I know what they're doing. I know what they're doing
every day.
Officials have told CBS News that among the thousands of stolen firearms and firearm parts were even gun parts that at one time belonged to ATF agents.
Never half-ass two things. Whole-ass one thing.
Director Dettelbach, I'm so glad you finished up talking when you're talking about stolen weapons. When weapons get in the bad guy's hands, they're stolen from some group. We already had Mr. Gates talk about the weapons that were stolen from you. But let's just talk about it. I know you thought Fast and Furious was over with. It's not over.
No! God, please, no! No!
It's not over. There's a licensed FFL that I am aware of that sold a weapon during that Fast and Furious time. Who did he sell it to? To ATF.
What was the reason given?
The reasons that we were given was what the supervisors and agency had told us was they no longer wanted to just make cases against straw purchasers. A straw purchaser is someone who buys a firearm that's not intended for their own personal use. That they wanted to make the bigger cases, to take off, drug trafficking organizations or cartel organizations, to finally make that leap from the underlings to the management, the coordinators of such things. So by order to do that, we have to identify these people, build a case against them, investigate them, and this was their answer to do that.
Guess what? It was recently traced to a crime. Guess who's got to respond to that? The FFL. It was ATF that ran Fast and Furious. 2,000 guns. 2,000 guns. And this one recently turned up in a crime. And now you're coming back to the FFL saying, well, hey, who'd you sell it to? Well, I sold it to an ATF agent.
Why isn't that a legitimate reason?
Because a lot of people are going to get hurt with those firearms between the time we let them go and the time they're recovered again in a crime.
Where'd it go? Well, you guys had guns stolen from you. So I want to know this. How many other guns from Operation Fast and Furious remain unaccounted for?
Operation Fast and Furious has been the subject of numerous reports. And I do not have.
So you don't know. Just
I
say
don't have the specific answer. I can get back to you if there's sources.
you don't know because there were over 2,000 guns. Last report that was published was that you'd recovered 700 of them. Mexico reported 150 people killed or maimed with guns that ATF had. Fast and Furious. That's what the radical left Democrats thought was a great program.
Because we're smart.
So don't elaborate and try to say, oh, hey, guess what? You know what? I can get you numbers. I would like those numbers. Because I also want to know this. How many guns walked away altogether from ATF?
What was the point of watching guns be sold and change hands, supposedly headed from Mexico, and not stopping them?
I can't tell you that, ma'am.
Since Fast and Furious.
During Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious, which was, I think, 15 years ago, there were reports. I can check and get back to you with the public record, but we have implemented numerous controls to try and make sure that we're respecting public safety.
But what happened earlier today was just reported this year. The IG said that you still haven't implemented enough reforms, guidelines to watch over to make sure. You were the victim of how many guns were stolen from you guys?
Fast and Furious began almost 3 years ago. The secret law enforcement program allowed criminals to buy guns so government agents could trace them to Mexican drug cartels. But blowback came, and it was tragic. The government lost track of hundreds of guns, which started showing up at crime scenes, including the site where U.S. border agent Brian Terry was murdered in December 2010.
Most of the items that were stolen from the National Destruction Branch, which is what I think you're referring to, were parts, were firearm components. There were some number of firearms that were also stolen.
You're not going to tell us the number?
And I don't know, sitting here, the exact number of complete
How many guns from
firearms
Fast and Furious were recovered at crime scenes?
Again, I don't want.
How many FFLs are you inspecting today because they sold to ATF during Fast and Furious? Do you know that?
I don't believe we're inspecting any FFLs today.
Well, sure you are. Sure you are.
Because
I've had
please allow me to finish. Because of any conduct that relates in any way, shape, or form to Fast and Furious.
Well, sure you are, because I know, because an FFL contacted me and showed me the docs. You guys are inspecting and going after an FFL who sold to ATF.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood. I thought your question was, are we inspecting people because of conduct in Fast and Furious?
He was a total douche. Doop-a-dee-doom.
It would be 15 years since it would be normal,
which is
normal course of business to inspect a federally licensed firearms dealer once a decade.
But the problem that we have here, and this is just one of many FFLs that are undergoing rigorous problems from you guys. This is an FFL that's sold to an ATF agent. The ATF lost track of that weapon. It gets used in a crime, and now he's having to respond. Why isn't ATF having to respond? Because it gets back to the hypocrisy of your zero tolerance policy.
Initially, the Justice Department told Congress that they did not allow guns to flow into Mexico, but that was false, and months later they took it back. The program was disbanded and disowned.
This is a big scandal. People who have screwed up will be held accountable.
But Diane, now they are hiding behind executive privilege, President Obama invoking it, saying he wants members of his administration to be able to have candid conversations without Congress snooping around in their email.
I have no idea what I'm doing, but I know I'm doing it really, really well.